Imagine a kid asking, if ChatGPT is so smart, why does it still make mistakes? Welcome to today's Explainer. Today, we're diving into what I think is absolutely the greatest paradox in modern AI. It's literally a detective story, a puzzle that's keeping the brightest minds in the field awake at night. And it all kicks off with that one incredibly simple question. So let's just look at these sheer, breathtaking capabilities of AI right now. We're talking about systems that can solve insanely difficult math in seconds, write production-ready code, ace professional exams, and distill massive research papers. But then, boom, spectacularly, inexplicably, they just fail. And they fail in ways that completely defy logic. That wild contrast, that's exactly where our mystery begins. It's wild because 1 second you have this emergent genius processing massive data sets to help out scientists and doctors. And then, out of nowhere, the exact same system starts hallucinating. A lawyer gets completely fake legal citations. It spits out dangerous medical advice or just confidently invents historical facts. And the crazy part? It delivers this pure fiction with the exact same authoritative tone it uses for actual hard science. You ask a totally harmless question, and suddenly you get a genuinely harmful answer. So, how on earth can both of these things be true? How does an AI that has digested literally billions of data points just fail so unexpectedly and with so much confidence? Well, hold on to that mystery for a second, because to solve it, we can't just dive straight into lines of code or complex algorithms. Nope, we actually need to start somewhere way more familiar. We need to start with human intuition. To really wrap our heads around this paradox, picture this. Imagine a highly gifted student standing completely alone inside an infinite library. They've read every single book on those towering shelves. They've soaked up an unfathomable amount of information. But here's the catch. They did it all in total isolation. They learned the text, sure, but nobody was there to tell them what's polite. Nobody was there to teach them what's dangerous or what's fundamentally right or wrong. Now, what happens when that student finally steps out of the library and into the real world? It's pure chaos. They interrupt people constantly. They completely misread the room in basic social situations. They'll give you highly detailed, perfectly articulated, but entirely inappropriate advice. They just miss all the vital emotional context. And why? Because while they are incredibly knowledgeable, they aren't wise yet. Raw knowledge, just hoarded in a vacuum, doesn't automatically magically translate to good behavior. Which brings us right to a really crucial distinction: intelligence versus wisdom. Intelligence is basically the ability to recognize patterns, memorize facts, and predict the next logical step. But wisdom is having the judgment to apply those patterns safely and appropriately in the real world. And early language models ran into this exact same roadblock. See, predicting the next word by scanning billions of examples gives them mind-blowing pattern recognition. But it absolutely does not teach an AI how to politely admit it doesn't know something or how to strike a balance between being honest and being helpful. Okay, so let's see how this human analogy plays out in the real science. As researchers pushed AI further and further, they started building these massive foundation models. And honestly, something awe-inspiring happened. Advanced capabilities just emerged, purely from the sheer scale of it all. By throwing way more data and parameters at them, these models suddenly figured out how to do things nobody ever explicitly programmed them to do. This phenomenon is known as emergence, and it literally left researchers stunned. The models were undeniably brilliant. But, of course, that brilliance came with a huge catch. Because you have this one central foundation model being adapted for countless different downstream tasks, everything from answering questions to pulling out specific data, it gathers vast generalized knowledge. But it completely lacks the specific, nuanced judgment you need for unique real-world situations. Think about it. If the foundation has a crack, a blind spot, or some hidden bias, every single application built on top of it inherits that exact same flaw. Whether it's a diagnostic tool for your doctor or a research bot for your lawyer, that single point of failure just echoes everywhere. In fact, researchers stumbled upon this incredibly ironic phenomenon called unwanted imitation. Now, you'd probably assume that making a model larger and smarter would automatically make it more accurate, right? Well, actually, larger, smarter models just became way better at confidently replicating all the flaws, biases, and misinformation buried in their human training data. The AI isn't failing because it's dumb. It's failing because it's so incredibly smart that it perfectly mimics our human reasoning mistakes, right alongside our sound logic. And that brings us right to the human motive in our detective story. We build these systems to assist us, sure, but take a second and really think about it. What does helpful actually mean? When we tell an AI to be helpful, we quickly realize this isn't just a technical problem anymore. It's deeply, fundamentally human. We want the AI to follow the rules, but here's the kicker. We don't even agree on what the rules of assistance should be in the first place. I mean, we're looking at some pretty profound dilemmas here. Should an AI answer literally every single question it's asked? What happens when telling the absolute brutal truth directly conflicts with being kind or compassionate? Take the algorithms used in the criminal justice system to predict recidivism. Those have sparked massive, ongoing debates over racial bias and fairness. Guys, these aren't just coding errors we can patch in the next update. These are deep philosophical dilemmas about justice, transparency, and what it actually means to do no harm in a super complex world. We've got to remember that at the end of the day, artificial intelligence is simply a mirror. It's just a reflection of our own messy, entirely contradictory reality. We, people, are the ultimate source of the data feeding these systems, and we are also the ones downstream whose lives are actually impacted when these models get deployed. The machine is just reflecting the reality we've collectively fed into it. It absorbs every single brilliant insight we have, right alongside every dark flaw we possess. Since these language models learn by essentially scraping the entire internet, they're inheriting the full spectrum of our human culture, the breathtakingly brilliant stuff and the deeply, deeply toxic stuff. And they do it all without any inherent moral compass whatsoever. An AI doesn't just naturally know if a statement is a celebrated, scientifically proven fact or a harmful, deeply rooted prejudice. It only knows statistics, right? It only knows the mathematical frequency of those words popping up in our collective vocabulary. So researchers obviously needed a way to patch this massive gap between raw intelligence and careful wisdom. They had to figure out a way to actually teach the machine how to behave. Enter their very first major lead in this detective story, reinforcement learning from human feedback, or RLHF. Since the model clearly couldn't figure out human values just by binge reading the raw, unfiltered internet, humans had to step in and literally become the teachers. Think back to that infinite library we talked about earlier. But now imagine thousands of human teachers stepping inside. They sit down right next to that brilliant, incredibly awkward student. The AI generates a few different responses to a prompt, and then a human reviewer looks at them and manually ranks their preferences. They basically say, okay, this answer is safe and helpful, but that one over there, that's dangerous or just completely unhelpful. And very slowly, step by step, the AI learns to imitate that preferred behavior, essentially updating its internal compass to favor safety. But of course, this solution just created a brand new mystery. I mean, yes, relying on manual human feedback absolutely teaches better behavior and reduces those immediate harms, but look at the cost. It is prohibitively expensive and unscalably slow. You literally cannot hire enough human reviewers on Earth to account for every single possible conversation a globally deployed AI is going to have. And honestly, the biggest flaw here is human. Whose values are we actually teaching it? Different cultures, different people, we fundamentally disagree on what's right. Human feedback is great for obvious harms, but it completely breaks down the second it hits nuanced cultural differences. Which leaves us with one final, incredibly provocative thought to linger on. The sheer scale of the world means we absolutely cannot manually review every single AI answer forever. It's just not going to happen. So, if humans can't supervise these models forever, could an AI somehow learn to improve its own behavior? Could that exact same emergent intelligence that causes an AI to hallucinate be harnessed to read a set of constitutional rules and actually align itself? Well, we're going to leave you to ponder that mystery. Thanks for joining us on today's Explainer, and we'll see you next time.